The 2024 NFL MVP race is currently crazy, so in today's video, I want to talk about the top 5 best candidates for the MVP award through the first 4 weeks of the NFL season. So as I mentioned, we are going to be talking about 5 potential MVP candidates thus far through the first 4 weeks. Now, everything could change in the upcoming weeks, but as of when I'm making this video, these are the players that I would personally have on the radar to win the award. I do have 3 honorable mentions I do want to throw out here: Saquon Barkley, Patrick Mahomes, and Baker Mayfield. For Saquon, it just really comes down to his team not playing all that well. I think they're 2-2, and that does not bode well for a guy like Saquon. Then there's Patrick Mahomes, who his team is playing great, and Mahomes has the status and the caliber of the name notoriety, but he hasn't been playing that good of football. And then there's Baker Mayfield. Baker would have a higher chance of being on my list if his team was 4-1 or 5-0, but they do have a couple losses, so I do have to knock him down, even if he's playing some really good football. But with that all said, if you guys do go on to enjoy the video, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. But let's get into our top 5. Coming in at number 5 is going to be Derrick Henry of the Baltimore Ravens. In week 1, he had himself a really poor game, but since week 1, he has been going absolutely crazy. Against the Las Vegas Raiders, a game in which they lost, he had 18 carries for 84 yards and a touchdown. In week 3 versus the Dallas Cowboys, he had 25 carries for 151 yards and 2 touchdowns. And most recently in this Buffalo Bills game, he had 24 carries for 1 yard less than 200 and a touchdown. He has had a touchdown in every single game and has basically been one of the biggest components to the success of the Baltimore Ravens outside of Lamar Jackson. The one drawback for Derrick Henry to potentially move up for this award is that I do imagine his usage is going to get lesser and lesser as the season goes on. And this isn't because I expect him to wear down physically, it's just the fact that I would imagine this Ravens team is going to want to keep his legs as fresh as possible for the playoffs, which they will inevitably be in. So I think the likelihood of him consistently having over 20 carries a game is very unlikely. I think these past 2 weeks, they've gone up against defenses that were a little bit vulnerable to the run game, which is why they would run the ball a crap ton. I do expect him to get a lot of carries, but I don't expect him to be averaging 20 to 25 per game like he has been these past 2 weeks. But with that all said, if this Ravens team continues to succeed, and if Derrick Henry continues to be the main catalyst for this offense playing at this highly of a level, then I easily think he could be in the running for this award. Now, also having MVP caliber quarterback Lamar Jackson also does help him, but at the same time, it may also hurt his odds of winning this award. Ultimately, when you have 2 guys who are on the MVP stage, it's very unlikely that they're going to give it to the running back, whereas they're probably more than likely going to give it to the Pro Bowl, All-Pro level quarterback that Lamar Jackson is. But in this specific instance, I'm personally giving a little bit more credit in this list to Derrick Henry because I think he has been the #1 reason why this Ravens offense has been as good. Of course, Lamar Jackson is also a big reason as well. Moving on to number 4, I have Jayden Daniels of the Washington Commanders. Now, this is extremely early. We are only 4 weeks through the season, so I have a hard time really imagining that this is going to hold up for the rest of the season. And that's just simply because I don't think Washington has the talent to consistently put together these sort of games they've had the past couple weeks. But because we're making this through the first 4 weeks, I think you have to give a ton of credit to the guy in Jayden Daniels who's been playing some really good football. Again, I don't think he's going to be in the running for this award by the end of the season, and that's just simply because I think there'll be better players on better teams that have a better case. But as of right now, this Washington Commanders team has a 3-1 record, a couple of very impressive victories, and the biggest reason why they are 3-1 is because of Jayden Daniels. I easily think that Jayden Daniels will be easily in the running for the Offensive Rookie of the Year award, and maybe even if he keeps this level of play up in the MVP conversations. But it is a little bit hard to imagine a rookie, especially a guy like Jayden Daniels who's on a team like Washington, actually winning this award. But again, we are making this just the first 4 weeks, so right now he is my 4th best odds. On the year, he has 3 yards under 900 yards passing. He has 3 touchdowns through the air and 1 interception. And on the ground, he has 218 rushing yards and an additional 4 touchdowns. He has also had those big time games that you want to see from an MVP candidate. He obviously had that great game against the Cincinnati Bengals, and then he just drops like over 30 points against the Arizona Cardinals. Again, I don't expect him to be in the conversations late in the season, and that's just simply because he's so young and this Washington team just doesn't stack up with the rest of the players that I'm going to be talking about on this list. But if he keeps repeating what he has been doing through the first 4 weeks, I easily think he can be in the conversation for it. He has the statistics, he has the confidence, he has the ability, and I also think he also has the media's attention, which is always a good thing if you want to end up winning the MVP award. So for now, he's easily in the conversation. We'll have to wait to see if he can keep this up, because if he does, I think he can easily be in this conversation late into the season. Next up at number 3, I have Mr. Brock Purdy of the San Francisco 49ers. Now this one might be a bit of a controversial take because the Niners have not been playing good football. They're 2-2, and maybe Brock Purdy hasn't been in the conversations by a lot of other people's metrics, but to my metrics, I think he has simply been the best player on the San Francisco team and has been low-key kind of carrying them to victories. This Niners team defensively is a complete mess. Offensively speaking, they have a ton of different issues, whether it's the offensive line, Christian McCaffrey being injured, Deebo Samuel having some injuries, George Kittle having some injuries, Trent Williams having some injuries. Yet despite that, Brock Purdy is putting together a fantastic season, and I think he's been the sole reason why this Niners team has been able to stay afloat through the first 4 weeks. On the year, he has the 4th most passing yards with 1,130, 5 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, and a very high QBR. And this one might be a tad bit of a projection. I do think as of right now, he may not have the statistics that Baker Mayfield has, but I do think the narrative that goes into the MVP conversation also must be taken in. Again, Lamar Jackson last year didn't have the best stats, but he beat out guys like Brock Purdy and Dak Prescott simply because his team was playing at a higher level and because he was basically the entirety of that Ravens offense. And I think that's kind of what my reasoning is for having Brock Purdy as high as he is. Yes, Baker Mayfield has better statistics, but he isn't carrying that Bucs offense such as a guy like Brock Purdy is. Brock Purdy is simply the only reason why this Niners offense has been afloat. Yes, the run game has been decent, but that is because in large part, the way they are attacking this Niners offense is by having those 2 safeties high and making Brock Purdy methodically move the ball down the field, which he has had some relative success in. He also does have the name notoriety, the media's push to try to get him to that MVP award, which I think all does bode well for a guy like Brock Purdy. He has a game up next week against the Arizona Cardinals where I expect him to be able to play very well because that Cardinals defense isn't very good, and just let Jaden Daniels just dot them up. So I do think that this one will age well. I also do think that Brock Purdy and this Niners team will start to play better football throughout the season. So I do imagine that Brock Purdy will play better, even better than what he has been doing, which would just elevate his odds to win the award even more. Next up at number 2, I have Josh Allen of the Buffalo Bills. If you had asked me who was the MVP after week 3, it would have been Josh Allen, but ultimately he did just have I don't want to say a bad one, but the team in general had a bit of a stinker against the Baltimore Ravens, so that did, in my opinion, drop him down 1 spot. Josh Allen on the season has simply just been awesome. He has 814 passing yards, 7 touchdowns, and maybe most impressively, 0 interceptions. And this is coming from a guy in Josh Allen who has had some turnover issues these past couple seasons. 0 interceptions through the start of the year is absolutely incredible from Josh Allen. He also does rank number 1 in QBR amongst all quarterbacks. Now, I will say Josh Allen hasn't gone up against the greatest competition, and when he has in the Baltimore Ravens, his team did get blown out. So it is still to be determined about whether or not this Bills team is going to be good enough to elevate a guy like Josh Allen to win the MVP award. But I would say thus far through the 4 weeks we've seen of him, Josh Allen has been one of the best quarterbacks out there, even in that game versus Baltimore, which by the way has a fantastic defense and a great team overall. I still thought Josh Allen was able to have some moments that would elevate him to that MVP status. Ultimately, this is an offense that Buffalo has that doesn't have the superstar name notoriety like they've had the past couple years. So really, this offense is very reliant on Josh Allen to use his arm and his legs to create the offense. And so far, they're 3-1 and have had a ton of success. And I think the biggest reason why has been because of Josh Allen. I also do think if Josh Allen can continue to limit the turnovers like he has so far through the first 4 weeks, then there really isn't going to be anything holding him back from winning the award. One of the main reasons why Josh Allen simply hasn't been able to win this award is because 1, there have been some really good winners, but 2, Josh Allen has been known to be a bit of a turnover machine. So while I don't expect him to have 0 interceptions by the end of the year, if he can limit them to like less than 10 interceptions by the end of the season, assuming this Bills team continues to play well and assuming Josh Allen continues to be the main reason why, I really have a good feeling that he could potentially win this award for the first time. But ultimately, he is not my number 1, and that is because we have maybe the biggest shocker of the season, Sam Darnold and the Minnesota Vikings as my number 1 candidate to win the MVP award. So far through the first 4 weeks of the season, he has 932 passing yards, 11 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions, and the 3rd highest QBR amongst all quarterbacks in the NFL. And Minnesota is also 4-0, which definitely does help his case, and this isn't a situation situation where the rest of the team around him is carrying him to that 4-0 record. No, that is simply not the case. Sam Darnold has been one of the main reasons why this team has been able to have this good of a start to their season. Is Sam Darnold playing hero ball? Is he playing the Lamar Jackson role from last year? Is he 2021, 2020 Patrick Mahomes? No, not necessarily, but that's also not what this Vikings team is asking him to do. What they're asking him to do is limit the turnovers, make the right throws, and play very good football. And even when he is asked to make a higher level throw or some crazy, throw on the run, he has been able to do so. Again, I don't want to undermine what he's been able to do by saying, oh, he's a product of Kevin O'Connell. Oh, he's a product of Justin Jefferson. He's a product of Aaron Jones. Hasn't really been the case. Yes, those guys have definitely helped his case out and have definitely made him a better player this season, but Sam Darnold deserves basically all of the credit for the early success that he has had. Now, the big question for me is going to be, can he sustain this for the rest of the year? Can Sam Darnold continue to play at this high of a level and not have his play dwindle down based off who the competition is? Well, thus far, they're 4-0. They've had some tough matchups against some very good teams, and Sam Darnold has looked like the best quarterback in the NFL. So if he can maintain this level of play, even if it isn't up to this level he's had, if it's a tad bit lower, I still feel like he's going to be in the conversations, especially if this Vikings team can somehow win like 10, 11, 12 games this season. If this Vikings team continues to play at this highly of a level, and if Sam Darnold keeps putting up these numbers and keeps playing at this high of a level, I have a hard time imagining another quarterback being able to match up to Sam Darnold and somehow take over his spot as #1 on my MVP award. Now, I know I might get a little bit of flack for not having Lamar Jackson on this list, but ultimately, I think that he's been playing well, just not as well as these other quarterbacks, and somebody like Sam Darnold, who has been playing such a high level on such a good team, easily deserves to be my #1 pick to win the MVP award. But per usual, if you guys agree or disagree with any of the picks I have, let me know in the comment section below. And if y'all enjoyed, hit the like and subscribe button, and I love you guys. Peace.